Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Amanda Ray, and today we have a special guest here, Joshua. You don't even go by Joshua.
That's Josh.
Josh, yeah.
Yeah.
If you are a part of our live streams on Cold Cup of Coffee, you may recognize your username was
A Life Out of Order.
which is his YouTube channel, which we're going to have linked in the description box down below, so go subscribe to his channel. Do you want to, we're going to start by kind of placing where you are in the order, explain how many wives your dad had, maybe your relationship to, like, your, because a lot of viewers like to know where you go in relation to Paul, the leadership.
Yeah, so my dad has 2 wives and 26 children total,
Okay.
and I'm number 7. As far as relation to Paul, he is married to my sister, and I'm pretty sure he's my second cousin.
Oh, okay, wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because your dad is brother. So that means he's half siblings to Ortel. Okay. And you can be related multiple ways to Paul through, like, either the Peterson line or the Kingston
Which we
line.
all are.
Yep, definitely. So, okay, so you are related through there. You are I did not know you were the 7th oldest. I thought you were one of the oldest.
No, I'm the 7th.
That is crazy.
7th from the first wife. And then my dad married his second wife the same year I was born. So that's when he died.
Okay, so you don't remember any of that stuff because you were a baby. So for me, I came from the second family, so I didn't really know what was going on. I was lied to about it all. Did they tell the second family that they weren't allowed to call him dad?
Actually, we didn't know. So until we're 8 years old, we're told that the second wife is our aunt and that her children are our cousins.
Wow.
So we're born into this whole lie.
Yep. That's kind of similar to with us. Like, I knew the first 5 kids were my cousins because they technically were, because they were my mom's sister's kids, but no one told me they were my siblings till I got old. It was like I had to figure out on my own.
When I was a kid, we were in public school, and so they had to keep it a secret, so we didn't go talk to our peers.
Oh, right. Did they coach you on, because for me, they coached me on what to say to outsiders when they ask you what your religion is?
I don't remember that. What did they have?
Okay.
I remember that.
And I think this was family to family. Your family made you lie too?
Yeah, we just said we were Mormons from
Wow.
LDS.
Yep. By the way, Amanda, the other Amanda's behind the camera, and she's going to be chiming in for anyone who doesn't know what's going on. That's interesting that they said Mormon because we started saying Mormon, but then they would say, "Oh, what stake are you in?" And I'd be like, "I like steak." Yeah. So then my mom was like, "Here's what you're going to say. You're going to say you're a born-again Christian." And I thought it was all one word, born again, but it's born again Christian. If you watched the video with Nancy and her husband, Nick, she's telling, like, the public on YouTube that they're Christians.
We're a pretty religious family. We're Christians. Not LDS, but Christians.
When they're, in fact, polygamists.
Right.
But, yeah, they would coach us on lying to outsiders. But, yeah, that makes sense, too, that they would just lie to you so that you don't accidentally blab to the outsiders. Mm-hmm. And this was a part of your story, too, was right. You were one of the first kind of like guinea pigs for the private school for the order, right?
Yep. They started the school and it was in like a warehouse, basically. It was like a strip mall. You've seen it. When it started, it was just a warehouse, and then every year they'd add a little bit more and a little bit more. First year they put a bunch of age groups together, and then basically we were educated by sister wives that weren't certified to be teachers.
Yep. Oh,
Where
yeah.
was the school located?
It's kind of by the church, actually.
Oh.
So you have Damon Palmer, which is where everyone goes to church to this day, off of Redwood Road, and then you can literally walk to Ensign Learning Center from there.
It's like a quarter mile.
And you would call the teachers by their first name, but you say sister, which is so, they also didn't coach me on that. Like, I thought everybody called their teachers sister so-and-so. Yeah. So when I went to public school, I'm like, what's this Mr. and Mrs. crap?
Yeah. It's night and day difference between public school and the order school.
Right.
Crazy.
But you were in charge of, once you got older, you were in charge of helping with the curriculum, or?
Yeah, I was a teacher's assistant because my stepmom was one of the first teachers, and so every year we would go in a month or 2 before school started, and we would put together the curriculum. Uh-huh. And in order for it to be a certified school, obviously we had to follow the Utah curriculum, and they're probably getting state funding. I'm not exactly sure. So in order to get that funding, they had to follow a certain curriculum.
Yeah.
But we would take that curriculum and we would alter it every year. And so if there were any races that weren't white, we would glue white faces and white hands on the cartoon bodies of if they're Mexican, or like one specific I remember was George Washington Carver. They put white face and white hands, and then they laminated it.
And did they tell you why they were doing that?
I did ask my stepmom, and she's like, oh, it's not racist. It's because our group is only white, and we don't want to confuse our students.
But it's
And I was
totally
like, yeah,
racist.
that makes sense. Okay, we're not racist.
Yeah, but you're also a kid, like, trying to make sense of it. You're like, okay, yeah.
Yeah.
That reason makes sense to my underdeveloped brain because I'm a
the
child.
answer you gave me, so that's what I understand.
Right. Yeah,
I feel
and
like kids will just like blindly follow.
oh, for
Just
sure.
say,
Well, I mean, that's why like the N word is still used to this day in the order because they literally don't think it's racist. They don't think that they're being racist. But yeah, Jessica was also talking about how she was helping them rip out pages of the science books because they were talking about evolution, and they didn't want us to learn about evolution.
Don't want you to learn about evolution. They can't have you looking up to anybody that's not white. They can't have you have to believe that everything great came from the order.
Right. And one of them is they don't want us learning about, because there is a topic in one of the science books that talks about, I don't know if it was a specific science book that they had, but I remember in public school they were talking about how these kittens, they were inbred so much that they started to die off. And I was like, wait, what? And so they must have hid that from us too in the group, because one of your brothers actually argued with me and was like, actually, did you know the government just wants to brainwash us into thinking that incest exists, but it actually doesn't? Like, you can't get any deformities from marrying your siblings.
Oh, God.
And I was like, why would the government want to do that?
Blame the government.
Yeah. Every time I look back, though, I'm like, why was I so stupid in the order? It was like, it wasn't that we were stupid. We were literally, like, put into this cage and only fed information that they wanted us to believe.
Yeah.
So I have the experience of being a girl in that and my whole lifestyle with that, but it's so different for a boy. Would you agree?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But you still were taught marriage was a big deal.
I don't think they pushed marriage onto me very much. It was more my siblings, but I was just the rowdy black sheep of the family.
Was you really?
Yeah. I would skip church constantly, and I was, they didn't push it on me very much. They didn't put me through the whole what you need to do before you get married, but I did witness my brothers going through that, and they changed from night and day. They'd go from awesome people that I'd interact with and love to interact with to very strict, and they'd go talk to Paul, and then their entire personalities changed because that's how they had to be to get married.
Yeah. It is insane to see. I remember seeing that when I was in the order, that I would have a friend who we would be tight and we would be laughing about maybe things that are against order standards, right? And then she would say things like, yeah, I don't want to get married until I'm 18, blah, blah, blah. As soon as she had a meeting with Paul, she was engaged, and completely different person. And I've made this joke on my YouTube channel of like, oh, maybe they like put something in the drink, or maybe there's some kind of brainwashing thing that they do in the meeting. But what I really think it is none of us really have a good sense of self, and we're not taught to trust ourselves. So we're super malleable. We're super easy to just kind of manipulate into the person that they want us to be, as long as they give a very controlled situation to us. So I think that's what's happening with your siblings. Like, they obviously enjoyed being around you, and that's who they probably really were. And then they got into that situation with Paul, and then they realized, okay, I have to do this, this, and this to be able to get my wife and da-da-da. But when you leave, like now when I look back, I'm like, why was I doing all that?
Right.
Like, why was I like, I have to do this, this, this? It didn't matter.
Right.
But they made it seem like it was your whole entire world.
I like your Kool-Aid theory better.
The Kool-Aid?
They just drank it.
Right. It's so much more simple, right? You can just drink the Kool-Aid and then you're brainwashed.
My brother went into his meeting with Paul when he came out. Like I said, he had a completely different personality. But not only that, he would try to manipulate me to have the same personality. Like, he would bring me to the store and, this is what you have to wear, and I'm your elder, and you have to wear this and this and this and this, and he'd pick out all these shirts and belts and
You're like, where's my brother?
I'm gonna wear a t-shirt and jeans like I always have, thanks. But
yeah. I know it would make sense that they're like using some kind of a drug to make them a completely different person.
Yeah. The drug is you're not gonna get laid unless you follow me.
He's like, I gotta change. It works for a lot of the men though, because then they do realize like, oh, there are 40-year-old unmarried dudes here, and they're still praying for a wife.
Yeah.
But why do you think you were the black sheep in your family?
A lot of it had to do with that I was strictly dickly. Yeah, so I'm gay, so like this, I didn't show any.
You're like, that's why I was the black sheep, is because I didn't want to get married.
Yeah, I didn't show any interest in finding wives, and so they didn't really pursue it.
Did you know that you were gay from a very young age?
Yeah, I was probably like 12 years old.
I was told a story about you.
What?
That you, they were like, yeah, we could tell that he was gay because he would overcompensate and be like, yeah, look at that girl's boobs.
Oh, yeah. I know who told you that.
Who?
Was it? I would severely overcompensate when I was in junior high. Damn, girl, look at that ass.
And then they see that you're like, well, looking at all the dudes.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
You
Did
have
you
like a gay men's magazine in your locker.
hidden in your
Yeah.
You're like, "Ah."
did they talk to you about it at all? And they were gonna make so that you would go to conversion therapy, or were they having a plan for you to marry a woman?
They did some sort of conversion thing. During COVID, I kind of went back to the order a little bit because I got a divorce and all this stuff. And so I was there for a few months, and it just kind of seemed like it was going to be a conversion thing.
Really?
They wanted me to be straight, and I was like, nah.
I guess I didn't hear this part of your story. So you were out, you were married, and then went through a divorce, went through some hard times, and then went back. Because that's like really the only time you can talk to your family is if you go back. Like my mom said the same thing to me. You won't see your siblings again unless you come join the order.
Yeah, and then it kind of started feeling like conversion therapy. They'd have prayer circles and people coming over and stuff, and it just started getting weird. So that's the only type of conversion that they had. When I was younger, they suspected that I was gay, and my dad tried to talk to me about it once, but we both went flush red, and we're just like, let's just not.
You're just like, it's such a like taboo. I think talking about being gay is taboo. My dad, because we have a half brother who's gay, he would flat out just be like, you're making it up for attention. Being gay isn't even a thing.
Oh yeah, I think my dad said something
Along the
almost
lines.
exactly like that. Yeah.
So your fate would have been they're just gonna do all this conversion therapy and try to get you married to a girl.
Mm-hmm. I mean, when I was in the order, I didn't know of any people that were gay. It's people that I suspected, but there were a lot.
Yeah.
And probably 75% of them get married to women.
Wow.
Why do you think that is?
Because, I mean, you kind of, at least for a time, you have to give up your family if you decide to be who you are. So.
But it almost feels like there's, and maybe I'm just on this woo-woo theory, but every single one of Daniel's families has at least one gay person in it. And I have a theory that it can not, maybe it's partially genetic, but then it can be partially your childhood. Because I think, I'm just speaking for myself, my sexuality has a lot to do with things that happened to me as a child.
Yeah, I don't know if I agree with you're born gay. A lot of it is environmental change while you're developing your sexuality. So we are products of our environment. I do find it interesting that I don't know any of Paul's kids that are gay, which is weird.
I've talked to one of the wives that was married to one of Paul's kids, and she thinks that her husband was gay.
It's probably that maybe he finds out that some of his sons are gay, and then he forces them into marriages so that they don't learn about it.
And I think that, he's very specifically careful with that first family, because I've noticed that first family, the teenage boys are given like 2-3 wives as a teenager, which is super. I don't know if it's just that he favors her or what, but I feel like that in itself is, what would you call that? Forcing your kid basically to have sex underage with multiple women. That's weird.
Yeah, creepy.
Yeah, like you're grooming your child to have multiple sex partners, and but this is for the Lord's kingdom. Mm-hmm. So in a way, it's like I talk a lot about how sad it is for the women, but there's a lot of sad parts for the men as well. Even if this guy's straight, like he's just a kid like trying to figure out life, and now he's being thrown like 3 wives, and you're supposed to be getting him pregnant every single year, right? Yeah. And then on top of that, there's all these also gay men who are being forced to like, something's wrong with you, you need to just pray the gay away. And like if you've heard Nephi's story, you know Nephi Robinson? Mm-hmm. He was flat out like, I think he knew he was gay, and then he got married and tried to live the straight life and then couldn't do it much longer.
Yeah. I actually had a member of the order, and I won't say his name or any specifics, but he would message me. I was working nights, graveyards for construction, and he would message me every night like I was his therapist. He's like, since I've gotten married, I've developed insomnia. He's like, I love my kids, but if I could go back, I wouldn't have them or get married to my wife because I have to lie to them for the rest of my life. And like, he wouldn't sleep ever, and he would message me every night for like 2 years straight.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Did he stay?
I believe he's still there. Yeah.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
You probably helped him cope, but do you ever go through this? This is probably like so off topic, but I've had people message me like that, even anonymously, and I've felt obligated to help them.
Mm-hmm.
But it's also like that's not your place to you can't drop everything to go save everybody.
Right.
And so there's like a weird, I go through this over and over again where it's like, wait a minute, you're losing yourself to try to help this one person who, a lot of the times for me, this has happened where I drop everything for this person and then they get caught talking to me and then they ghost me and they never talk to me again. But I think being raised in the order, we were raised with no boundaries because they're constantly being crossed anyways. So there's no room for that in a place like that. But that was nice of you to be his therapist, but did you feel that obligation of like, I need to help this person cope because I feel a pull because I went through this too?
Yeah, it actually didn't feel too much like super obligation because I feel like he was giving me a perspective of what my life would have been if I had stayed in the order.
Oh yeah.
So he was benefiting me as well.
Right.
If I had stayed, I would have insomnia, and I wouldn't have a husband that I care about a lot, and I would be married to a woman and have kids that I have to lie to and resent for the rest of my life. So.
Right. And they're still living in that. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
There's definitely been moments where I've had those wake up, like, wow, that if I would have stayed and done everything they wanted at the rate that they wanted. Well, technically, I would have never got pregnant because the guy they wanted me to marry is sterile, basically.
Oh.
But let's say I married someone who would have gotten me pregnant every single year. I would have 8 or 9 kids by now, which is insane. My mom was like, by the 10th one, they just start walking out.
Yeah.
You sneeze and you give birth.
The thing that triggers me most in therapy is talking about how they have so many kids one after another when it spreads them thinner and thinner and thinner every child that they have. And if a sane person, when you're having a child, you put thought into it, how am I going to afford it? But their
personality and who their kid even is.
Right. You can't even get to know them at that point.
Exactly.
It's just a matter of keeping them alive at that point.
Yeah.
And they can't, some of them can't even do a good job of that. Like, because they're also kids raising these kids.
Yeah.
Being forced into the situation.
Basically have to raise your siblings too, but they believe that there's a spiritual realm with a line of spirits waiting to get in, and it's your responsibility and obligation to have those children, even if you can't afford them. And their idea is if you have another child, even if you can't afford it, the world will find a way.
Yep.
More like our tax dollars will.
Yeah. I am guilty though of when I was a kid, I was like, I want 10 kids. Like, I'm so excited to have 10. You didn't get excited for it?
Never me.
Never, really?
I think I would foster a child if I ever find myself wanting one, but there's already enough Kingstons in this world.
Oh, yeah. Even when you were in the order, you weren't like, I can't wait to have a little baby.
That was never me. I think most people do have that desire to have children, but I raised a lot of my siblings, so I feel like I've gone through that.
That's true. And I did raise my siblings, but I do feel like I went through a weird mourning process where they got like ripped from me. And I started to do daycare, and I did daycare and nannying for like a couple years afterwards, and it kind of filled that void. And then being married into Amanda's family actually really helped with that, like losing all of my siblings, and you kind of like helped me to feel like I had that family again. But definitely doing the daycare made me realize, oh my gosh, yeah, as a mom, if I was a mom to these kids, none of their needs are being met. Like, and this law I hope has changed by now, but at the time I could have 8 toddlers in one room to one person, and that should be illegal.
It changed. It has to be 2 now.
Okay, that's good. That's still not enough, I feel like. But it did make me like really value what my mom did for us, and like understand why she was always so stressed.
Mm-hmm.
But that doesn't excuse like all of the behaviors that happened and that we had to witness.
Right.
So being a man in the order, you were the black sheep, but you also had to go to church every Sunday. You had to go to the school programs. You did maturation class.
Yeah.
Can you explain what men maturation class is like?
I have like one vivid memory from it, and I think I blocked the rest out because it's so awkward, but Paul Kingston, having 300 kids and how many wives, should be completely comfortable talking about sex.
Right.
So he gets up, and I kind of just have to act it out, but he's like, today we're going to talk about, and then he gets super flush, and he's like, well, we're going to talk about And then he says, I've never said this in a room full of people before. And he like whispers it into the mic, and he's like, today we're going to talk about sex.
What the
And that's
hell?
how he says it. It's like, just talk about your performing a maturation class. Just, yep, this is how you have sex. This is what happens. This is your body. But he says it like that, and I get like flush red. And my parents were sitting in the back of the room, and I look back at them like, what the hell? And I think I might have gotten up and walked out at that point because it was just super, super weird
Yeah.
hearing the leader of the order talk.
Yeah, you
whispering
would
about
think,
sex.
literally, like, he has at least 27 wives,
Mhm.
and he knows what sex is.
Yeah.
But the fact that, do you think that he felt pressure to do that class?
It might have been like part of the syllabus at that point. He had to do some sort of, I'm not sure what motivated him to do it.
Yeah, because it sounds like he didn't want to do
Obviously
it.
wasn't comfortable with it. He could have like gotten somebody, a professional. Like,
Yeah.
Yeah,
medical
like a sex
professional.
ed teacher.
Yeah.
But they wouldn't want to bring any outsiders in there,
That's true.
unless they're maybe from another polygamous group. But
Oh.
that is so weird. Yeah, I heard that there was some neglect on my end because my mom pulled me out and put me into homeschool right at the time I would be learning about maturation, so I had no idea what a period was. So I thought I was bleeding out, dying. I think a lot of girls actually have this experience, just thinking that they're slowly dying, but they're too embarrassed to tell anyone. So they're like, I'd rather die of this than to talk about the fact that I'm bleeding from my privates.
You know, I have friends that talk about, they only have like one sister. We're friends on the outside, obviously. Have one sister talk about growing up, how it was messy, and they knew about menstruation and everything. And I had a dozen sisters, and never was it talked about. Never was
Wow.
it seen or anything. Like, the order keeps tabs on it. They want to believe it doesn't exist. So it's like
So weird.
really weird.
Which is, we were talking about this before that we turned the camera on, how it's so weird that they're so obsessed with procreating, yet they won't tell you.
They don't educate anyone on
Right.
When I was watching the Tom Green thing where he's talking about his 14-year-old wife, and she didn't know anything about sex, and he felt like it was like a spiritual thing that he got to educate her for that. I wonder if that's how polygamists believe. They're like, keep them uneducated so we can teach them everything they need to know, and it's fucking creepy.
Yeah, that it is so gross because it's almost like they get excited that this person is so like fresh. It's like that whole, you know how people glorify the
control and power.
yeah, but it's even like the virgin thing where people get obsessed with the idea of a virgin. But why are you really getting obsessed with that? It's because you want to be the first one to basically taint them and to create how they see it. I think there's also an ego thing involved where they're like, they have nothing to compare me to. Like, I am going to be the best in their eyes.
Ego is a big thing with order men.
Right. And I believe that that's why they started to do K is for kiss, you save your kiss for your wedding day. They started to do those ABC order standards because I think back in the day before we were even born, the leadership was getting jealous of the ones that they wanted to marry courting other men because they did allow courting back in the day. Since then, it's gotten worse and worse in that aspect of like the men being so jealous, which is so funny. It's like, we want the women to save themselves for us, but we can be little hoes.
Yeah. The order's perfectly set up for men. And I believe, I have a theory too that order men are fine not taking care of their children because then these women, these little girls have daddy issues and then they're okay marrying an old man.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. This is such
Wow.
a so the cycle continues forever.
That makes sense.
It really just sets the girls up for failure, really.
Yeah.
What did you think of, or did you know that Paul was marrying his siblings, sisters? I don't know, his brothers were marrying their siblings as well.
I didn't really know. I know one of his wives that went into hiding. We haven't talked about that, but
Yeah, we can discuss that. So basically you were over the families that went into hiding. That was Paul's wives?
yeah. Paul, so the District Attorney of Utah in 2006 issued warrants for DNA to swab the children to find out which ones were incest and which ones were from underage marriages and things like that, so they could build a case against Paul. And so Paul found out about this, and him and Daniel both and their kids put all their wives that were on that list into hiding. And then I volunteered to go with them, so like, because two of them were my sisters, and the children were my nieces and nephews. So I went out to help them. provide for themselves.
And where, can you say where it was?
It was in Colorado. I'm pretty sure everybody knows now that's in the order.
All of them were sent to Colorado?
Mm-hmm.
The same place?
Yep.
Interesting. For some reason, I thought that they sent them to a bunch of different areas to like disperse them.
At one point, Daniel did send one of his wives to other places. I don't know where it was, but...
So how long were they in hiding for?
I was with them for like a year and a half, and then I think in total, they were there for like 4 years hiding.
And that this means the kids couldn't go to public schools?
Mm-mm. No.
What was the situations like that you saw?
So the wives all had alias names, and then they would coach the children. If any of the neighbors come, this is your name, it's a different name, different last name, and this is where you're coming from. And then they were technically homeschooled, but these are mothers that are not teachers, and so they're not very well educated. I will give them the credit that when they did come back after that 4 years, they did hammer in, from what I've heard from my nephews and nieces, they did give them a lot of extra focus to get them caught up with people their
With
age.
Everybody else, yeah.
Did any of the neighbors come over?
They did come to talk. They would trade goats and livestock and stuff, so they would come talk to the kids, and they'd all the kids were giving them alias names and stuff. But
So the neighbors never noticed anything like out of the ordinary?
I do know, because I left well before they came back from Utah, and then I went to do construction for a while.
Mm-hmm.
And I was driving through Colorado, and I didn't know whether they had come back to Utah or not. So I stopped at the house to say hi or whatever, and they weren't there, and there was notices from DCFS on the door, and like the property was in shambles and stuff. So I think the neighbors did suspect something.
Yeah. In hindsight, yeah. So these women were kind of just left in the middle of, it sounds like livestock, so it's like a farm area.
A trailer on a bunch of property, like a tiny trailer with 3 wives and all these kids in a 3-bedroom trailer, and then a garage. And the boys were sleeping in a shed that was
Insulated?
uninsulated.
So it was cold?
In Colorado winters.
Oh.
Ice cold, and they'd put like 3 space heaters, and then they'd all pile into bunk beds together. But the women, because they're more valuable, got to sleep in the living room where it was warm. All the kids together. So.
Was there a lot of sickness that happened?
I don't think so.
Okay.
No.
What about, did Paul go visit? Okay, so where we left off was, I was asking if Paul went and visited, and you said that he took turns.
Yeah. So imagine a single wide trailer with 3 bedrooms, and each wife had a bedroom, which is pretty much next door to each other. He would stay at one, and then the next night he'd stay at the other, and the next night he would stay at the other, and he would impregnate them, and that's basically why he was there.
Oh my gosh.
And the women were working cleaning out foreclosed homes, and I was working with them. They wouldn't have to work if they were pregnant, though. So at one point, all 3 were pregnant, and I was having to do all the work alone, and they'd still get a percentage because obviously...
They would get paid?
Yeah, because we're providing for these women that are in hiding.
Were you getting paid?
How old were they?
The women?
The 3 women in hiding?
Probably
Like roughly?
close to 30. They were all around the same age.
That's pretty young.
Yeah.
Oh.
No.
How old was Paul?
How old is Paul now?
Paul is born in the 60s, right? I should know this. He's younger than Daniel.
But he was roughly like what age at the time?
If it was 2006, then he had to have been 40s, 50s, maybe? Because he's in his 60s now. 60s, late 60s.
It's weird how like your sperm is still good at that age.
I don't feel like it's...
I hear when you get older, for men and women, it's like...
It's not as
fresh,
fresh.
Yeah.
Well, my dad had one just a few years ago, and he's in his 80s.
Oh, wow.
Whoa. Do you think that he was hoping that the women would all cycle up so their ovulation would be at the same time? Because he keeps track of his wives' ovulations.
All of them?
Yep. And I was told that some of the wives only saw him on their ovulation, even though they all like lived in Salt Lake, except for these ones, right? So his less favorite wives, he would only visit them to impregnate them, and then his favorite wives, he would be there like all the time.
That's how it goes.
It's crazy.
Who was his favorite?
I'm gonna say I'll blur it.
Mm-hmm.
Miss New Boobs. Which is funny because he married her and her sister, but the sister's not one of the favorites, but
Why?
she's one of the favorites because the sister's not hot. That's literally it.
And she doesn't have new boobs.
Yeah. Get with the program. And then I think the first wife is obviously one of the favorites, right?
Yeah.
Am I right? Those three?
And it's probably one of his favorites too.
Why would his sister be one of his favorites?
Well, when we were in Colorado, there was a trailer house, and then for his favorite wife, that it was also his half sister, she got a beautiful farmhouse to herself with her kids. So I assume she's one of his favorites.
You know what? You're probably right, because after they came out of hiding, when Priscilla and I were living in Vegas together, this was literally like maybe a year or 2 years ago, Priscilla ran into Paul and his favorite, that wife we were just talking about, and they were just hanging out on the strip in Vegas, just the two of them.
That makes sense.
Just hanging out, brother and sister time, and marriage time.
Sibling bonding time.
Sibling bonding. Yeah, did you find that weird when you were in the order? Like, I talked to Joe Robinson about it because his parents are siblings, and I was like, so you must have thought it was normal, and he said he always thought it was weird. But was there ever a time for you where you were like...
I always thought it was super creepy, yeah.
Yeah, I don't think that it's normal in your human, like, anatomy to want that. So
not unless you're groomed and conditioned to want it.
But that's what's so crazy is then why is Paul doing that? Like, because for me, for all of us, like you're just saying, like, we were born and raised in it, but we still thought it was weird. So why are they forcing it?
Well, he has to enforce it because the entire group is one giant family, so there's going to be some
Some incesting?
Yeah.
Oh, and we were talking about this before the camera went on, and I think this is a super interesting topic. You were saying, like, it felt weird that why does it seem like Paul doesn't really marry, like, underage girls, but then he has other people and promotes other people, kind of, like, makes other people marry underage girls, and then I was like, oh yeah, also with the incest thing, where it's like, well, yeah, Paul's doing the incest, but he also is really pushing for other people to do that, and it feels like this mafia-based thing where I'm guilty, but now you're guilty too, so if I go down, we're all going down together.
Guilty by association, yeah. He's arranging marriages I don't know if he has any underage wives, but he arranges underage marriages, so it kind of feels like that enforces some kind of commitment to him.
Yeah.
You can't screw him over because
he knows this dirt about you.
Yeah.
Yep.
This sounds like P. Diddy.
P. Diddy?
Oh,
yeah.
This is like...
I'm going to do it, and if you want to get these benefits, then you have to do it too.
Yeah.
And now we're all going down.
Now we're all going down.
They used this with... Did you ever hear the story of Baby Rhoda? And how Jesse should have gone to prison for it? So we're stopping the video at this point because you're going to have to go over... Was you recording?
I am.
I just noticed. Okay. We're stopping the video at this point because you're going to have to go over to Josh's channel for part 2 to finish. Go subscribe! There needs to be more education on dating after you leave a cult, because every person